Yeah, and I think they're going to be more receptive to it than they were in previous
Hmm.
years because of that lack of familiarity,
Yeah.
and because of the fact that they didn't deliberately choose to reject it already. And that's not to say that they're and our differences in our theology of human nature may inevitably come into play here,
Hmm.
but it's that's not to say that a person. I think I think this is going to be a really off the wall analogy, but I think it works. I think it's very accurate. Before the Civil War, you had two kinds of racism in America. You had Southern racism, which was the racism of experience, and so it was a prejudice much more like the old atheists had. They rejected the thing they encountered every day. They knew what it, they at least had a decent idea of what it was, and they didn't want to have anything to do with it. And then in the North, you had a more subtle prejudice, which was sort of the prejudice of ignorance, where for Northern white people, Black people they didn't exist. So the sort of racist caricatures and stereotypes that were floating around the whole country were what white people's idea of Black people was. And I think that if you encounter hostility today, it's much more likely to be the second kind towards the Christian faith, where people have heard little snippets and bits, or maybe had a negative experience with a Christian or someone that called themselves a Christian, or they heard some influencer on YouTube say that Christianity oppresses this group of people, or it did this kind of stuff in history, and they don't really, like, if you pressed them on it, they wouldn't be able to give you any sort of receipts for why this argument is valid. So the job would be then to introduce them to a real Christian, hopefully, and that's the way you ultimately eliminate a prejudice, is through experience.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah, and I think the thing I found, this is a bit of a weird tidbit or a bit of advice for Christians, but I don't know about you, Eric, because we both come from traditions with kind of wacky outliers, but it is a good thing, and it's a nice thing to meet a Christian who's normal. Now, what does that mean? You meet a lot of people in various traditions, or the stereotype is someone who is close-minded and moralistic, someone who's very naive, maybe caught up in obscure Bible debates, or is sheltered or something like that, and who, whenever they meet someone, they're kind of focused on judging them and getting them on their team, right? And so I think a challenge for us as Christians, and I think we're both quirky, but we're not, bizarre maybe. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing to maybe meet people, have a reasonable conversation with them, be kind and generous, and at the very least, they can walk away saying, "I despise Christianity, but that guy's okay." At least that individual was a good representation of what this worldview can yield. And so I think, besides, or short of just, short of actually preaching the gospel, perhaps, or presenting a case um, for your beliefs, maybe a pre-apologetic is to, treat people as normal human beings, especially if they're hostile to you, because as Christians, we're kind of under orders, so to speak, to treat those most hostile to us with the most generosity.
Yes, and that is in the Sermon on the Mount, the evidence that a person is of the Father in heaven, and not of the devil, the father on earth, who kind of oversees a system where it's vengeance and hatred and hostility and
Mm.
selfishness.